wasn't a devotee. His son-in-law's father, he was actually he was part of a big family. They were alcoholics. He was also. Anyway, Jagannath Maharaj stayed in their home for 3 days, and then, when it was time to leave, he said, so whose place is this that we're staying in? And they said, this couple here. And so he gave mercy. And they became devotees. He preached to them, and they wound up moving to Mayapur. And they told that the devotees were initiated and all their children. Him and he has 3 sisters. They're all, devotees and disciples like that. So that was it. So anyway, I rang him up, and I asked him, do you know about that? He said, oh yeah, my father was just telling me the whole story. His father was just telling him the whole story. They were just watching some video, and his father was telling him the whole story. So I got the details from him. And then subsequently, I found something on the internet by Shama Sundar, where really in great detail tells the story. But I don't think I'll be able to get that much detail. But anyway, what happened was Mayapur was being attacked repeatedly. Actually, I'll tell you what, I'm going to start this right where it really super relevant. Remember yesterday I asked that question to Maharaj about, they were discussing about the men and the women like that. So at one point I said, I can't remember how the conversation got around to it, but I said, Prabhupada in Vrindavan, there was a Mataji, Shruti Rupa, and Prabhupada gave the instruction that she could only be in the kitchen cooking if her husband was there with her. That was supposed to be the standard, okay? So Prabhupada gave that instruction back in 1976. Okay, so how it relates to this whole story, and he said, well, what does that have to do with the deity coming to Mayapur? Okay, well it does, because what happened in Mayapur, they weren't observing that standard, and there was an incident where a pujari fell down with a Mataji, who they were working in the deity kitchen. She was a widow, and he was like, I don't know if I can't say she. Okay, there you go. And they had an affair, and they fell down. So this was a seva aparad. Okay, now Shama Sundar, after the incident happened, what happened was they approached Shama Sundar, who was studying astrology under some very famous astrologer in India. And they asked him, hey, could you find out why this happened? Who the people were involved? Is there any possibility we're going to get these deities back? Etc. So he consulted this astrologer, and the astrologer told him, yeah, that's how they found out who was involved and etc. So it goes back to the seva aparad. That was the point he was making. It goes back to that seva aparad. As a result of that seva aparad, these horrible things were happening in Mayapur. Prabhupada's childhood deities got stolen. There was a series of attacks. There was one major one, but prior to that, there was, dacoits came. And there's one, I got to see if I can find this. Sadhudanya describes what a dacoit is. It's not just a burglar. Burglars come at night and stealth, right. But dacoits, they will come and with pipe bombs and all sorts of weapons, and they'll kill you mercilessly if you interfere with what they're up to. So it was a pretty heavy thing. But anyway, Prabhupada's childhood deities got stolen, and then a deity of Radharani got stolen because the dacoits said it was made of gold because it had golden color, brass, golden color. And so anyway, on this particular, there was a few leading up to this, but then on March 24th, 1984, at just shortly after midnight, the temple was attacked. The original Radharani was stolen. The leaders, because the temple was being frequently attacked, the ISKCON leaders, Bhavananda at the time, Jayapataka Maharaj, they had guns, shotguns, and they used to fire them above the heads of the dacoits, to kind of try to scare them off. So they had guns, but this time they didn't scare. There was he mentioned about 24 of them or 27 of them, something like that, some number like that. And Bhakti Raghav Maharaj, he went out, he was involved there. He was Raghava Pandit at the time, and they shot off one of his legs. By Krishna's arrangement, he had polio, and one of his legs was also already useless for him. That was the leg that got shot off. So it was Krishna's, that was Krishna's mercy. So then after that incident, they started the leaders there started discussing, we got to do something to protect Mayapur. And that's when they came, up with this idea that they should get an Nrsinga deed. Oh, I got some. Yeah, 35 dacoits tried to rob the Srila Prabhupada. They tried to rob Srila Prabhupada Murti and Radharani. Radharani got stolen. They were able to kind of rescue Prabhupada Murti. These attacks were happening frequently. Bhavananda was in charge, and he came up with the idea of Nrsinga deed, but it's traditional because apparently Bhaktivinoda Thakur instructed his son, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, to do something similar because they were having a similar problem at a temple that he was establishing. So it's not like it was just some concoction. So Bhavananda instructed a devotee named Atma Tattva, God brother of mine, to make a drawing of what this Nrsinga should look like. So he drew it up, and raise your hand if you know Atma Tattva, very brilliant, talented devotee. So he drew it up, and it came out to look, they thought it was an Ugra Nrsinga, is what they thought he came up with. So the experts were in South India, the people who made the deities. So he went down to South India, and it was going to cost, this is working, everybody can hear me okay? Yeah. They thought it was going to cost 1,30,000 rupees. That was and they approached some devotees, and there's one devotee named Radhapad who sponsored the entire thing, 1,30,000 rupees. And he'd already sponsored other things as well. So Atma Tattva went, and he approached various, I don't know how you refer to them, not sculptors, Sculpties?
Or Shilpis.
Shilpis, okay. The fellows who make the deities. And they were all scared. When he showed them the picture and he told them, maybe he said Ugra Nrsinga, I don't know, I can't, but they said, no, we're not doing this, So he was getting a little discouraged, and after 4 months he came back, and but then they wanted him to go again. So he went again, and this time he found this one man called Bhaskar. And so Bhaskar, he did some astrological calculations, and he showed him a picture of what he could do, and it matched the picture of what Atma Tattva, this is before he even saw Atma Tattva's picture. So it matched, and he said, okay, it sounds like we could do this, So Bhaskar was into it, but he consulted his guru, and his guru said, no way, because he mentioned Ugra Nrsinga, and his guru said, forget it, and he told him a story about that 3,000 years ago there was a village where they were worshiping Ugra Nrsinga, and they became a little bit, there was some seva aparads committed, the standard of worship was going down, and at one point that whole village became destroyed. So it's making the point to him, it's very serious. You're worshiping Ugra Nrsinga, you got to be really know what you're doing, because if you make offenses, it's very serious consequences. So the Bhaskar he was kind of into it already, so he was trying to persuade his guru to let him do it. So he showed the guru the picture that him and Atma Tattva, had came to, and his guru said, "Oh, no, that's not Ugra Nrsinga. That's Suntu Nrsinga, Suntu Nrsinga, which means satisfied Nrsinga." It was, he was still. It looks really angry, but it's after he already killed Hiranyakasipu. So he said that was, not Ugra Nrsinga. But then the guru said, "But don't take a chance." He still, even after establishing that it wasn't Ugra Nrsinga, it was Suntu Nrsinga, he still was advising his disciple, don't take a chance. So then some time passed, then this fellow Bhaskar had a dream. And in the dream, the guru came and said, go ahead and do it. And he woke up. That same day, he received the newsletter from his, Sangha. And in the newsletter, the guru included a message in the newsletter, you can go ahead and do it. So he got the green light from his spiritual master. And so he did it, and he completed it, and the devotees didn't go get it right away. I don't know what, I didn't get the reason for that, but the devotees were kind of like a little slow in going down to pick it up.
The reason is that he would go back to the subcommittee and ask him, do you get it? What's going on? And he said, look, we're not carving some idol. We need to find the right stone. And in the stone, there's actually an insect which lives. And it goes through that stone. That's how you know that this is actually fit to get the Lord and is alive.
Ah,
So
okay.
it's taking time. It's not like you can just go
Right.
to any piece of land.
But even when it was all completed, he had it in some warehouse, and there was a fire in the warehouse, and then after that, the Bhaskar contacted the ISKCON devotees and said, hey, come on, get your deity, we don't want to keep him here because, it's, we're worried. So they went and they went down to get him, and then they transported him, and he was telling me that normally when they transport deities from one state to the other, there's problems. The police are always trying to stop you and get some bribes and this and that, there's always some sort of problem. But they had no problem. They did get stopped, as at checkpoints like that by various police, and that when they showed them, they opened and they showed them the Nrsinga deity, and they said, okay, go, no problem, right. So, and they installed the deity facing the temple entrance, and they said since that time there's been no problems. They've had no problems. So that's the story of how Lord Nrsingadev deity got to Mayapur. Yeah. Okay, so now as far as the initiation goes, I tried to work out like a definition of initiation, and this is what I came up with. Initiation formalizes the relationship between an aspiring disciple and a spiritual master. At the time of initiation, the at the time of initiation, the spiritual master officially accepts the aspiring disciple, and awards him a spiritual name, upon receiving which, now the disciple, he makes a commitment that he will follow the 4 regulative principles and chant 16 rounds. Of course, that's done verbally. Makes some vows like that. So it's like a contract. It's like you're entering into a formal relationship. Pardon the analogy, but it's just like if in relationship between a proper relationship between a man and a woman, there's some courtship, but at some point they decide, okay, well, now these people, we're going to get married. And when you get married, you get it's like you're entering into a legal relationship practically, There's a marriage certificate, there's it's formal like that. It's recognized by, a court of law. It's recognized by the society. This is, legally married man and woman. So it's something similar to that, Up until the time you're initiated, there's a relationship there, but when you actually take the initiation, then you're entering into like a contract, a legal relationship, or formal, legitimate spiritual relationship with the spiritual master. I think everybody understands that aspect of it. But what I wanted to emphasize in this talk was the position of this, why this is so significant, the position of the spiritual master. And I had that verse put up on the board. It was mentioned this morning that it was saying how the spiritual master, or the pure devotee, and it's related to today's Nrsinga Chaturdasi. So it's all related. That the reason we saw this morning, and that why Lord Nrsingadev came, the reason that's given in the translation is to prove that the statement of his servant Prahlad Maharaj was substantial. See? So that's not an isolated incident. That's Krishna's policy. It's Krishna's policy to support or to make sure that the statement of his servant, or his pure devotee, is substantial. So that holds true for the spiritual master. You see, the spiritual master is. We've heard these expressions, external manifestation of the supersoul, transparent via medium. He's Krishna's agent. It's just like, imagine there's a company, and the company has a chief executive officer, and he sends out a representative to some place. So that, that representative, he has power of attorney. He has the same authority as the CEO, because he's been given that authority. He says, you go to this Africa here or wherever, and you're representing the company. I trust you. Whatever deals you make, we're going to stand behind them. And that's the relationship between Krishna and the spiritual master. And that's why, that's why Krishna is that statement is being made there, because it's the pure devotee is in that type of relationship with Krishna. He's just make sure. Yeah, okay, got the sound. He's the representative. So Krishna's backing up whatever deals he makes. See, so if the spiritual master tells you, you chant 16 rounds, follow the four good principles, stay on the straight and narrow, and you're going back to Godhead at the end of this lifetime. That's happening. That's happening because why? Because Krishna will back it up. Krishna backs up the words of the spiritual master. So that's really, a very significant point there. And I'm going to read you some Shastric reference for that. This is from the second canto, chapter 4, text 18, the famous verse, Kirata Hunanda Pulinta Puksha, talks about how all these different lower births people can get delivered by Prabhavishnave Namaha, by the power of the pure devotee, like that. So these are excerpts from the purport. Prabhupada says, the devotees of the Lord are able authorities to effect such a change by purifying the dust-worn minds of the people in general. That's just warming up here. Goes on, the devotees are interested only in seeing that people in general are not misguided by political propaganda and that the valuable life of a human being is not spoiled in following a type of civilization which is ultimately doomed. Here comes a Vaishnava is powerful enough to turn into a Vaishnava even the Kirata, etc. So, these are all people outside the Vedic culture. Everybody knows Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra. Well, then there's Chandala, Malecha, Yavana. There's whole races. There's 400,000 human-like species, and here on Earth there's all sorts of races that are below. It's kind of deeply embedded in the mode of ignorance. Basically, that's the culture. That's the lifestyle. But according to this, a Vaishnava is powerful enough to turn into a Vaishnava, even the Karata, even people who are in that very low position. As above mentioned, in the Bhagavad Gita 9:32, it is said said by the Lord that there is no bar to becoming a devotee of the Lord, even for those who are low-born. That's the point. Even people who are low-born, by connection with the bona fide spiritual master, by surrendering to the bona fide spiritual master, they can be elevated all the way to the transcendental platform, to the point where they themselves are Vaishnavas. You see? Goes on. Even for those who are low-born, Krishna mentions, since that verse was being referred to women, Sudras, Vaishyas, and by becoming a devotee, everyone is eligible to return home back to Godhead. So there it is. Right? Those Prabhupada, my words are one thing, Prabhupada's words are another thing. You just heard it from Prabhupada, that the pure devotee, he can elevate even those who are low-born, and elevate them to the platform of, becoming a pure devotee, so much so that they can return back. They're eligible to return home back to Godhead. The only qualification, here it is, and this is where we come into the picture. The only qualification is that one takes shelter of a pure devotee of the Lord who has thorough knowledge in the transcendental science of Krishna. In parentheses, Prabhupada says, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So if you're fortunate enough to, come in contact with somebody who's, a pure devotee and has thorough knowledge of that transcendental science, then, wow, you're really in good position. And I think you're all in that position. That's my conviction. It says, a Vaishnava, therefore, can accept a bona fide disciple from any part of the world without any consideration of caste and creed, and promote him by regulative principles to the status of pure Vaishnava, who is transcendental to Brahminical culture. So Vaishnava is beyond Brahminical culture, which is like the mode of goodness. Somebody could be low-born, but if they take shelter of the bona fide spiritual master, they could be elevated to the position not beyond Brahminical culture, above Brahminical culture, totally transcendental. Goes on to say, as the all-powerful Lord accepts the humble service of his devotee in devotional activities of the archan, his form as the worshipable deity in the temple, similarly, the body of a pure Vaishnava changes transcendentally at once when he gives himself up to the service of the Lord and is trained by a qualified Vaishnava. The injunction of Vaishnav regulation in this connection runs as follows. Arche Vishnu Shiladir Gurushu Nadamati Vaishnave Jati Buddhi Sri Vishnu Namni Shabda Shamanya Buddhi. Okay, so translation is, one should not consider the deity of the Lord as worshipped in the temple to be an idol, and here's the significant point for us, nor should one consider the authorized spiritual master an ordinary man. That's super important. We should not consider the authorized spiritual master an ordinary man. Just like we shouldn't consider the deity an idol, just an ordinary statue. We shouldn't consider the holy name to be an ordinary sound vibration. Same thing. I mean, it's on the same level here. We shouldn't consider the spiritual master, the authorized spiritual master, an ordinary man. A very important point.
Are you still reading from 248?
Yeah, I think that was the end of the purport. We should not consider the authorized spiritual master an ordinary man. Okay, now I'm going to get practical here at this point. It's all practical, but this is how it works. Is this? So if you get a bona fide spiritual master, and you follow his instructions. Prabhupada would say, Prabhupada gave the example of sometimes if you see you're on a bicycle, and there's a truck going by or some motor vehicle going by, and it's going by, you're driving it on the bicycle, you can go about 18, 20 miles an hour, whatever, something. But the truck's going by, it's moving slowly, it's just because there's traffic, let's say, hypothetical situation. So you can grab onto it. And you grab onto that vehicle, and you get a good firm grip on it, you go as fast as it goes. Ordinarily, of your own, you can go 18, 26 miles an hour, whatever. But if you grab onto that vehicle, Prabhupada gives this example, you can go at the speed of that vehicle, you see? So the spiritual master, he's the leader. Practically speaking, he's the leader. And if we just you grab onto you take shelter of the spiritual master, you can really, you can be elevated. You could transcend what you're normally capable of doing. Now, if we all do that, then something really amazing happens. Does anybody know familiar with the word synergy? Okay, I'll give you a dictionary definition of the word synergy, because as I said, this is where it's very practical. This is not just a philosophical, esoteric sort of a thing. This is a very practical point. Okay, so synergy. Okay, the interaction or cooperation of two or more persons to produce a combined effect greater than the sum of their separate effects. See? So, yeah, it's kind of like the whole is greater than the sum total of the parts. When different individuals agree, to cooperate with the spiritual master, then it creates synergy. You see? Now, you might be able to do something, he might be able to do something, but the spiritual master, he's empowered by Krishna, he's the leader, and when the devotees agree to cooperate with him, it creates this synergy. And I'll try to give a practical example of what synergy is. Does anybody remember when in high school, maybe in college, you studied vector analysis? Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so a vector gives us is a name for the direction and magnitude of a force. Okay, so for instance, I'll give you an example. Okay, I'll make believe I'm a vector. Okay, I'm gonna try to make this very graphic. I'm a vector. It means I'm a force. Now, if I go behind this vyasa sign, pardon the lack of, and I try to push it forward, I can push it forward like that. Okay? But now, because I'm a vector, I have some direction and force. But now you come, take a volunteer. I'm volunteering Mahotsav. You be on the other side of the, no. I want you to push against me.
Okay.
I'm going to try to push it now, and you push against me. I'm not faking it. It's not moving. I just moved it 30 seconds ago, right? But now, because he's pushing against me, I can't move it. Okay, now come around here. Now, we'll push it both together this way. Very graphic example, right? When myself, you saw it moved a little bit. When he was pushing against me, then no movement at all, no progress at all. And when we joined together and we were lined up, not in an angle, but just completely in sync with each other, it just went really forward nicely. See, so that's what we got to do. That's what getting a big, important part of initiation is. You're part of it's like becoming part of an orchestra. You might be. The combined effect is amazing. One person playing a clarinet, okay, that's nice, but when the clarinet player becomes part of a real orchestra, and he's hired for the job, so to speak, and then wow, the orchestra is amazing. When you hear the music that the orchestra produces, that's incredible. So in the same way, when you have like a group of disciples, and they're all working in sync, they're all trying to, they understood that the whole idea, and this is the whole idea, the material world is created by Krishna to give the conditioned souls a chance to, once again, to learn how to live in harmony with his will, okay? And that chance really is available when you come to the human form of life, because animals can't do that, unless it's some special thing, mercy of Lord Chaitanya, like in Jharkhand, the forest, or something like that. Generally speaking, you got to come up to the human form of life, and in the human form of life, you have the chance, now to choose. I'm going to try to live my life in harmony with the. And when you actually come in contact with a bona fide, spiritual process and a bona fide spiritual master, then you're right there. So, if we all make that decision that, here's the point I left at. So to live in harmony with the will of Krishna, the will of God, living in harmony with the will of the spiritual master, same thing. That's exactly what that is. Why? Because as we said, the spiritual master, he's the external manifestation of the supersoul. He's the transparent via medium. He has the power of attorney. He's Krishna's agent. See? So living in harmony with the will of the spiritual master is the same exact thing as living in harmony with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's important, right? Yeah. See, so if we can manage somehow or another to live in harmony with the will of the will of the spiritual master, is expressed through his instructions. It's simple. The instructions of the spiritual master are that's his will. That's how we understand what his will is, what he wants. So if we just dedicate ourselves, really, focus. And Prabhupada said, follow my instructions, even the little ones. He made that statement. So if we really, focus on following the instructions of the spiritual master, then we can understand that we're living in harmony with the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay? Now, when you do that individually, that's good. But when two of you do that, that's better. And if 50 or 100 do it, imagine if we had just me and Mahasa, when we were pushing together like that, you saw it move pretty quickly and easily. Imagine if there was 10 of us back there. If we just squeezed, or 6, we couldn't fit 10. 6 of us, and we just, just go like that, just go shooting forward. So that's the point. See? It's like a spearhead. The spiritual master is like the spearhead, and we're the shaft. So you need the shaft to support. People, in the Mahabharata, there was nobody that was going around throwing spearheads. They throw a shaft. It's more powerful. See, so if everybody, the disciple actually makes that decision, or the disciples as a whole, as a body, they make that decision. We are going to dedicate our lives to following the instruction. That's it, and that Prabhupada actually drew attention to that. He was inspired by that thing that when he read it in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. Remember, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Ekeha Kunanda. In Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's purport to that verse, he said, one has to make the instruction of the spiritual master one's very life and soul. And Prabhupada said that really hit him. When he read that, he became very affected by that. So if we do that collectively, then as I said, it creates that synergy, and it's really powerful. It's really powerful. But if we don't, then, if we're kind of like dragging our heels and half into it, half not, and then it's like, the spiritual master could do so much on his own, but with everybody, on the same page, so to speak, then wow, it becomes very powerful. And when you have a situation where people are mixed, that's like me pushing from the back and somebody kind of pushing this way, somebody pushing that way, somebody pushing against me. It's like a counter effect. You see, it's like, in the example with the vectors. If you have a vector of 100 going this way, and you have a vector of 80, just opposing it, then the resultant is 20. But if you have that same 80 going the same direction, then the resultant is 180. Big difference. Big difference between 20 and 180, just, simple example. So we have to try to, as I said, that's a big significance of initiation, to try to join the club, become one of the members of the group of people who have made that commitment, have made that decision that, yeah, this is my leader. I have a leader now, and I'm going to dedicate my life to just trying to, follow his instructions, which means living in harmony with his will, which means living in harmony with the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and amazing things can be accomplished. And individually, as far as your own life goes, don't worry. You're good. You're already good. You're taken care of. But amazing things can be accomplished. Like, for instance, last night they made that presentation about how you want to move from here to the, and it might seem like, oh man, that's a big project. Like, we're going to be able to pull that off? Yeah, you can pull that off. Just look what the karmis are pulling off. You just drive 20 minutes in that direction or something like that, downtown to land. These people are not devotees. Krishna's energies are, some energy of Krishna has given them the intelligence, given them the ability and inspiration to put up a city. And we can't, get a farm project together? Yeah. It's small. It's nothing. When Krishna comes into the picture, and he does when people are cooperating with his representative, then it's just, I can't think of the expression, but sky's the limit. That's the expression. Sky's the limit. When everybody gets on the same page as Krishna's representative, how do you think Prabhupada, Prabhupada was amazing, of course, but Prabhupada had like a lot of devotees who totally surrendered. They, really surrendered their life. Following Prabhupada's instruction was everything. And then what was accomplished? A lot was accomplished, and Prabhupada, we give, the disciples give all the credit to Prabhupada, but Prabhupada gave a lot of credit to his disciples. Prabhupada in turn was saying, always, that's the way it works. It's a loving relationship. So anyway, I think I've said enough there, and the point is clear, right? That today's a big day. It's a big day for the people who are getting initiated, and every day is a big day for people who are already initiated, but that's what we're looking at. You have to try to become really, really serious and sincere followers of the instruction of our spiritual master, and then the sky's the limit. Our own spiritual life, our own spiritual success is guaranteed, and what we can do to help spread Krishna consciousness throughout the world, it could be something really incredible if we all just, have that mentality, have that same mindset like that. So, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. I think the next speaker is Prabhu. He's going to talk about the 10 offenses. Jai.
I love this synergy thing. That was awesome. It's pretty hard to miss it. Haribo, Prabhus. I'm back. It's funny because I never looked at the schedule. And I got a text from my wife, and she goes, "Can you listen live stream so I can hear what you say about the offenses?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" Prabhu comes to me and he goes, "Didn't you see the schedule? Whatever." And I should know this because I'm good at offending. I'm an offensive person. But Prabhupada's so kind and Panchatawa so kind that they want to save us